Hello and welcome to the vlog. So today is going to be mostly me responding to R. Roberts because you sent some great comments, great insight, but also questions that needed answer, and they also fit with what I've been doing with fitness and diet. So let's get right into it. So you're asking me about why I kind of go to the what seems like extremes with the dieting and with the exercise. And so I thought I'd already clarified this, but then I realized I may not have. I was going to try to do the 1 meal a day thing and just eat 1 meal a day. Primarily because for me to get excited about doing something like this, it needs to really challenge me. It needs to be something I know is going to be difficult because then it pushes me to actually try. If it's something that's not going to be that hard, I'm not going to be that committed to it, which just is what it is, just kind of how I am. If it's not something that really challenges me, that I really have to mentally engage with, I'm probably not going to do it. So that was sort of the thinking behind that, but I'm not doing that 1 meal a day, and I haven't for a little while because I realized that it was leaving me completely empty when I got home. And so I'd get home and I'd be useless as far as watching the girls or just being helpful at all. I didn't have any energy because the 1 meal I ate was way earlier in the day, and then if I was gonna just have the 1 meal when I got home, then I'd just be feeling like an absolute, balloon, and which would kind of do the exact same thing. So I found myself realizing that wasn't the best solution, and instead I've simply been limiting and being mindful about just my overall caloric intake. So that's sort of what I've done with the diet aspect of it. Now, as far as the exercise part, I'm trying to do like 450 squats. So and all the chin-ups and all the push-ups and all the sit-ups and whatever. None of this is, and review of yesterday, I did all the squats yesterday, but it was very difficult. None of this is really that extreme for where I used to be with fitness. I used to be working out 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. I was curling 65 pounds in each hand. Like, I was working out like a crazy person. So doing 450 squats over the course of a day is really not as extreme. But again, it has to be a number that's going to challenge me, or I'm not really going to be invested in it. So that's kind of how I try to go about this. And because I have these goals, like I really want to be able to do a huge number of squats because that'll mean my lower body is stronger. So that's sort of my thinking behind the fitness and the dieting aspects of it. That it needs to be something that challenges me. It needs to be something that I really engage with that's going to be difficult. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay, so moving on to the as far as goals for today, though, really quickly, today I'm taking the day off, primarily because, as I mentioned on Monday, my shoulders, I was worried that if I push them too hard, they might get hurt a little bit and sort of put me out of commission. Now, they didn't get hurt, but they're still kind of sore from Monday because I did up the numbers, and so they are kind of sore. So instead of trying to push through that and just like push myself even harder, instead I'm just going to take the day, do some stretching. I might do a handful of chin-ups and push-ups, just kind of stretch it out, but I'm not going to go for the numbers today because I want to make sure that I'm giving my shoulders a chance to rest and recuperate so that I can continue doing this. So the goals for today are whatever I end up doing. I'm not really going to push myself today. But moving on to the thoughts of the day, because you asked me a couple of questions and you made a couple of observations which were very interesting. We were talking about a couple days ago, talking about how life is a roller coaster, right? And that just kind of is how it is. That was yesterday. And you were talking about just some of the ways to cope with life being a roller coaster, and I probably should have said this, and I think I would have, but I felt like the video was getting too long as it was. The way that I go about coping with and just dealing with and living life, it's all wrapped up in my belief in God and my relationship with Jesus Christ. Because from that relationship, I understand and I see and recognize that we live in a broken world. It is oftentimes a very dark and a very broken world. And I've had this I've had this saying for a long time, and it goes something like this: when a broken world does broken things, it shouldn't surprise you. So, when life's kind of doing this and it's going down, and you're like, what's going on? Well, to me, that's the nature of the world as it is, and that's one of the reasons why I'm in need of a relationship with God, because that is the world that we live in, and because of what a relationship with God means for me and for everybody. So how I go about living in this roller coaster of life, roller coaster of a world, is I turn to and I lean on my relationship with God. And I know there are a lot of other ideas and thoughts on what you can do, but that is my story. That is what I do and how I go about it. So, and then the other thing you were saying, because I made a comment that the world, nobody owes you anything, and then you need to take personal responsibility. And you were saying, well, if you pay your taxes and you do this and then you do that, then the government does owe you something. But the thing is that just paying your taxes, right? If that's the case, then the people that the government owes the most to are the people who have the absolute most money, because the top 1% of the country pays well over 50% of the total taxes, right? So that 1% should be getting 50% of the benefits of the United States government. And the reality is that most people pay very little in taxes, and the amount of taxes that they pay wouldn't come close to covering a high school education or a college education. They just wouldn't. The numbers don't add up. So, to say that by paying taxes I'm owed this, well, how the government was set up, what our founding fathers envisioned for our country, was that the government's job was to keep us safe. A government's job was to protect our liberties and our rights, but it wasn't to do everything for us. That was never the government's job. So when I pay my taxes and when I think about that, I think, well, the government's supposed to be taking this money and using it for national defense and using it for, protecting our freedoms. But they were never supposed to be in the education business, because it turns out they're terrible at it. And it turns out every time they get involved with education, it gets worse. If you look at the college educations now, how expensive they are, you can trace a lot of that back to when the government said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start offering all of these loans to people. And all of a sudden, college is going, hey, cha-ching, well now, all of a sudden this education costs twice as much because you can get the loans easier. And so you got, it's taken the whole system and jacked it up. And the same thing with high school. Same thing, high school, middle school. Look at the test scores. Look at what's happening to our education system. It's not good. We're terrible. And I didn't go to public school. I was homeschooled, thankfully. Because so much of our public school, and there's a ton of reasons for it. This isn't me taking shots at teachers or whoever else. What I'm saying is that it's not working very well for a lot of people. When you've got people graduating high school who can't read at a 3rd grade level, which is throughout the country, that is a story. That is a common story. If that's the case, we are failing, and the government in general probably needs to not be in charge of it because they have failed. So that's why when I say, what is owed me specifically by the government, realistically, what they owe me is to protect my freedom, protect our country. And we've turned it into infrastructure and some stuff like that, the roads and the different things like that, and that's fine. That's the nature of a country that we live in, and the government taking responsibility for that. But what they provide far outweighs what I actually pay in taxes, and what most people actually pay in taxes. So that's why, to me, I can't say, well, I pay taxes, therefore they owe me this. I don't pay enough in taxes. I don't make enough money. And if I made enough money to pay that much in taxes, I wouldn't want whatever the government was trying to give me anyway, because I could afford something that'd be much better on the free open market. So that again, that's just my take on it. You know, what we currently have, which is sort of a lot of kind of a welfare and a handout situation, where a lot of stuff is just provided, and people think that that's just how it should be because it's a wealthy country. That is how wealthy countries turn into not wealthy countries. That is a mindset that leads to countries not having anything anymore, not having money anymore. And it's easy to say, well, we live in a wealthy country, that's not likely to happen. Well, it did. It happened to, it's the story of most countries. You know, they go through that arc, especially ones that are successful, ones that are wealthy. That's just what happens. And, you know, that seems to be where we're headed, and that's not a good thing. So my camera ran out of memory. I had to delete some of the other vlogs from it. But just to finish, that doesn't seem like that's a good thing. Where, you know, if that's where we're headed, it doesn't seem like a good thing. And, you know, that just seems to be what history says is likely to happen if we continue with that mindset. So, again, thank you so much for the comments, for the insight, for the thoughts. It was greatly appreciated. Feel free to respond with, you know, whatever, whether you agree with me, disagree with me on this one. You know, love the conversation. I love the interaction. So please, you know, send me another comment with your thoughts on this one. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be setting some more fitness goals and trying to achieve them. All right, see you tomorrow.